the young and the restless spoilers. Sharon sat in the dimly lit room of a rundown motel on the outskirts of town, her heart pounding in her chest as she stared at the newspaper in her trembling hands. There, plastered across the front page, was her own face, a haunting image that sent chills down her spine. The headline screamed "Wanted, Sharon Collins for questioning in murder case." She felt as though the walls were closing in around her, suffocating her with the crushing weight of reality. Her mind raced with thoughts of her inevitable capture, the trial, the cold metal bars of a prison cell. Sharon knew she was a murderer, there was no escaping that fact anymore. She had tried to bury the truth, to convince herself that the world would never know what she had done, but it was all unraveling now. The police had found evidence, and they were looking for her. Her phone rang endlessly, but she couldn't bring herself to answer. Every call could be the one that would seal her fate. For days, she had managed to stay hidden, moving from place to place, living in the shadows, but now she wasn't sure how much longer she could run. The fear of being caught was paralyzing, but even more terrifying was the thought of facing the consequences. Sharon knew she couldn't hide forever. Sooner or later, the police would track her down. But the question that gnawed at her was this: should she keep running or finally face the punishment for her crime? As she sat on the edge of the creaky motel bed, Sharon felt completely alone, her mind slipping further into a dark, twisted abyss. Her thoughts were no longer rational. The world around her seemed distant, like a fog she couldn't see through. Sharon had always been strong, but this time, she was broken. The guilt of killing Heather weighed on her soul, pushing her toward a mental collapse. Cameron, the one person who had been by her side throughout this entire ordeal, stepped into the room. His voice was soft but persuasive as he leaned against the doorframe, studying her. "Sharon, you can't stay here forever. You know that, right?" he said, his tone calm but urging. She nodded, barely able to meet his gaze. "I know. But what am I supposed to do? The police are looking for me. I can't go to prison, Cameron. I just can't," she whispered, her voice cracking with desperation. Cameron crossed the room and sat beside her. "You don't have to go to prison," he said firmly, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Listen to me. You still have a chance to get away. Leave this place, leave Genoa City behind. You can start over, Sharon. You've done it before. You can disappear and build a new life somewhere far away. No one has to know what happened." Sharon looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. The idea of running away was tempting. Cameron's words echoed in her mind, offering her a way out, a chance to escape the nightmare she was living. "But my family," she whispered, her thoughts drifting to Nick, Noah, and Faith. How could she leave them behind? How could she abandon the people she loved most in this world? Cameron's expression softened, but his resolve remained unshaken. "If you stay, Sharon, you'll lose everything. They'll arrest you, you'll go to trial, and you'll be locked away for years. Is that the life you want for yourself? Or for your family? You have to think about your future, not just the present. You can come back one day when things are different, but right now, running is your only option." Sharon's mind was a whirlwind of confusion, fear, and guilt. She knew Cameron was right: if she stayed, she would be caught. There would be no second chances, no room for negotiation. The law was clear, and she was a murderer. But the thought of running away, leaving her family, her children, her entire life behind, it felt unbearable. For hours, Sharon wrestled with the decision, the weight of the choice pressing down on her. She knew she had two options: turn herself in and face the consequences of her actions, or flee and live a life of exile, forever cut off from the people she loved. It wasn't much of a choice, really. Sharon had been spiraling into a deep depression for months, her mental health deteriorating with each passing day. The voices in her head were louder now, telling her that there was no way out, no hope for redemption. In a moment of painful clarity, Sharon made her decision. She would leave. It was the only way she could protect herself from the horrors that awaited her behind bars. Her heart ached as she sat down to write a letter, a final goodbye to the people she loved most in this world. With a heavy heart, Sharon began writing, her hand trembling as she penned the words that would explain everything. I don't even know where to begin. I know that what I've done is unforgivable, and the guilt has been eating me alive every day since it happened. I'm a murderer, and I deserve to be punished for what I've done.